All right, think about this for a second. What if a newspaper could do more than just, report the news? What if it could actually help reshape an entire country? Well, today we're going to look at a group of publications that did exactly that. It's a huge question, right? Can a newspaper really start a revolution? But for millions of African Americans in the 20th century, the answer wasn't just yes, it was a resounding yes. So let's get into how they pulled it off. You see, while most mainstream newspapers were all about objectivity, the Black press had a totally different mission. It was, right from its very core, an unabashed agent of advocacy and protest. These papers weren't just covering the community, they were leading it. I mean, we're not just talking about ink on paper here. For readers all over the country, these newspapers were a lifeline. They were a connection to something much bigger than themselves. This is where you went for information, yeah, but also for inspiration, and to hear a voice that finally spoke to your struggles and your dreams. And that voice, well, it first became a roar during a fight that would literally change the map of America, the Great Migration. The situation was pretty simple and pretty grim. In the South, you had all these push factors: brutal Jim Crow laws, the constant terror of racial violence, and just zero economic opportunity. But the North offered a pull: the promise of industrial jobs, the basic right to vote, and the hope that your kids could get a decent education. It was a choice between oppression and opportunity. And this building right here, this was the command center for the whole operation, the headquarters of the Chicago Defender. The publisher, a guy named Robert S. Abbott, wasn't just reporting on the migration. Oh no, he was basically orchestrating it, turning his paper into the nerve center for this massive national movement. Abbott knew exactly what he was doing with language, too. He called it the flight out of Egypt. He framed the South as bondage and the North as the promised land. This wasn't just about getting a better job. He was telling people this was a biblical journey to freedom. It shows you just how much the paper acted as a moral and spiritual guide. So how did all these people actually get there? Well, they took the train. And you can see it on this map, these dark lines just snaking up from the south. These were the arteries of the migration. People followed the rail lines like the Illinois Central, which became this direct pipeline funneling thousands upon thousands of people straight into Chicago. The Defender would even print train schedules right next to job listings. It was basically a roadmap to a new life. And the sheer scale of this, I mean, it is just staggering. We're talking about 1.5 million people moving north just in that first wave of the migration from about 1910 to 1940. It was one of the biggest internal migrations in American history, and it was all being fueled by the power of the printed word. You know, this huge historical event becomes so much more personal when you read the letters that just flooded the Defender's office. This one here says it all. This paper wasn't just some distant source of news. It was a trusted friend, a travel agent, and a beacon of hope all rolled into one. Now, that same fighting spirit would be called upon again just a few years later. As the world got dragged into World War II, the Black press geared up for its second major fight, this time on two fronts. And here was the central, painful contradiction. You had hundreds of thousands of Black Americans signing up to go fight the Axis powers for freedom and democracy overseas, while at the same time they were being treated like second-class citizens in their own country, in their own segregated military. So, out of that contradiction, a really powerful idea was born. Led by papers like the Pittsburgh Courier and the Baltimore Afro-American, they launched the Double V campaign. The framing was absolutely brilliant. It was both patriotic and defiant. It said, yes, we're fighting for victory abroad, but we're also fighting for victory over racism right here at home. Now, to tell this two-front story, Black war correspondents used this really unique style of journalism called, and it's a mouthful, feuilletonism. You can just forget about detached, objective reporting. This was personal. It was first person. It was chatty. A reporter like Ollie Stewart of the Afro-American became like your personal guide, your friend, walking you through the war. And they used that personal style to expose some really ugly truths with these bombshell headlines. I mean, look at this one. It's designed to shock you, to grab you by the collar and force you to see the hypocrisy. But this wasn't just talk. Because that headline, it came directly from first-hand reporting. Ollie Stewart literally overheard a white man say that exact sentence on a train in Georgia. The black press took what was being whispered in private and blasted it on the front page for the whole world to see. This was incredibly brave and dangerous journalism. And this quote from Stewart, man, it just reveals the personal toll this took. This little apology in parentheses he wrote to his readers is just heartbreaking. You can feel his exhaustion. He's tired of having to write about race, but he can't escape it because it was the undeniable reality for every black soldier he met. He was making the gears of racism visible for everyone back home. So when you step back and you look at these two massive fights together, the Great Migration and the Double V campaign, you start to see this incredible legacy taking shape. It's almost like they wrote a playbook. First, agitate. Use bold, in-your-face headlines to call out injustice. Second, inform. Give people the practical, life-changing info they need. Third, connect. Tell personal human stories that people can relate to. And finally, strategize. Walk that fine line between patriotism and protest to push for real change. And at the end of the day, here's the ultimate takeaway. This kind of journalism did so much more than just report on events. It built a case. By relentlessly, tirelessly documenting the courage and the dignity of Black Americans, the press constructed an irrefutable argument that full citizenship wasn't something to be asked for, but something that had already been earned many times over. Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. In our world today, with this fire hose of information coming at us 24/7, what can we learn from a press that had such a clear, focused, and unwavering mission? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.